Okay, guys, I am so glad to be back. I think the last video you probably saw, if you've been following along, some people are new, etc. I get it. But if you've been following along, the last video you probably saw was me with Samantha at the mall. Anyways, that was a Monday, okay? And that happened to be my first day off. I had worked 5 straight days of the previous week. So I had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off. So I put up a couple videos for Monday and was all ready to go out. So I went out Tuesday, and here we are. I think it's about 1 o'clock, Tuesday afternoon. And I was loaded up, had a bunch of lunches made, the whole deal. So I pull out to get on the highway to come to town, and I'm following behind this truck. It was like a work truck. I had the toolboxes on the side. Anyways, something pops out of the back. We're at 55 miles an hour. Something pops out of the back of their truck, and it come bouncing towards me. And so I hammer the brakes, and I bust the wheel to the left, big time, to avoid hitting whatever it was. You can't really make a determination in, 2 seconds. But anyways, whatever it was, I ran over it. I think it was a piece of metal roofing. There's a lot of metal roofs in our area. And regardless of the point, I heard a clunk underneath the car. And what had happened right at that point, I still had my brake, hammering it. It got to the point where the anti-lock thing came on. And I'm veering to the left, and my brake pedal goes down a little bit. And I just happened to be, 40, 50 feet or so from a big turnaround. And I was only a mile from the house. So I stop in this turnaround, and I get out, as I guess anybody would, to see, what happened, what's going on. Parked the car, got out, looked underneath, and here I am dripping, right by the wheel, brake fluid. So I'm like, all right, I got a couple options here. I can either stay here, get a tow truck, etc., etc. It was, like I said, 1 o'clock, so the traffic was really light. Not a whole lot of traffic either direction. I'm real close to my house. So I decided I'm going to put my hazard lights on, and I'm going to limp the car home. So I pull out of the turnaround, onto my, way back to the house, and I'm driving along, and then my tire light goes on, low air pressure. And that happened, I was only about a half mile from the house. So, I kept, just easing it home, going about 35, 40 miles an hour. And I get to my turn, and I hammer, I didn't hammer, I, gently press the brake, and it goes slowly to the floor. I'm like, all right, well, that's brake fluid for sure. So I get home, obviously park, and go get my tools, get my jack stands, etc. Take the wheel off. My brake line, the rubber brake line by the calipers severed, not in half, but just a giant gash in it. And my tire's starting to go low. And so I said, all right, let me jump in the truck that we drive, a couple times a month just to bring garbage and, do truck things with it. So I go to AutoZone to get, obviously, a new brake line. This is on the passenger side. So I get I go in there and I go, well, you know what? My brakes are squeaking anyways, and I got, the tire off, and this is a brake-related issue, so I'm going to change the brakes as well. So I got the brake pads. I ordered the part. He looked it up in the thing, passenger side, etc., etc. $34 something for that, $50 something, and so $90 out the door, tax. But he said the brake line it's not in stock. It has to come from Knoxville, from their warehouse, which is about 2 hours or so, 2.5 from my house, roughly. And he said he'll be here, you know, by noon tomorrow, which at that point would be Wednesday. I'm like, fantastic. Okay. All right. So I get in there. Well, I went home. I did the brakes, you know, to the best, you know, just got the pads ready and, you know, mounted the calipers back on and, you know, problem solved. The other brakes were really, really thin. I needed to do it anyways. And I figured also, hey, since I needed oil change, because my oil lights, I was 300 and something miles behind, because my car tells me that I'm X amount of miles behind the time to change the oil. So I'm like, all right. And I had bought the oil and a filter about 6 weeks ago. I bought a gallon of oil and the filter. So after I did the brakes, I got a big pan that you cook a turkey in. Drain my oil, you know, pop the cap off, or, you know, take it out and let it drain. And so here we are getting into the evening time on Tuesday, so it's starting to get dark. So I said, all right, I'm going to call it a night. So Wednesday I get up, I head up to AutoZone about noon. They give me the part, everything's fine, you know, the brake line. And I get home and I take the other brake line off at that point. And so I start replacing it, and it's the wrong brake line. The brake line I got, I'm just watching for traffic here, I'm getting out on the road. The brake line I got was for the driver's side. And it's got a different mount point to it between the driver and passenger. So I go back up there, bring them the new one, and I had the old one off, so I brought him the old one, showed him the difference, and the receipt that I had showed that he had ordered the correct part for the passenger side, but when it came from Knoxville, it was for the driver's side. So I'm like, well, this is just getting better. And he's like, well, bad thing about that is I can obviously replace the line. They sent you the wrong one, but it's going to be tomorrow. So that's yesterday, Thursday. And I'm like, okay. So I spent most of Thursday, I was going to finish the oil, but my car's, both sides are up now on jacks with the jack stands. Both tires are off, and the oil is empty. And the only thing I didn't do at that point was take out the oil filter and et cetera, et cetera. So I organized a bunch of boxes, and you guys are going to see that soon. Lots of people are, I'll admit myself, yeah, that was a mess. When you can't see through the lid of these plastic totes, and they slide all over the place, and it was just a mess. But I utilized this time to get highly structured in my, you'll see. And so I go back the following day now. I answered a few emails. I didn't have to work. I didn't get much done on the computer. I was really focused on getting my car system organized. And and then also Thursday morning, before I went and picked up the second brake line, I went and got my tire fixed. I needed a patch, so I stopped at this local tire store, which is, I actually passed it on the way home with the tire problem, but the brake part was the big deal. So I stopped in there to get a patch, $20, and I was like, damn, that went up. It used to be like $7, when I remember, but everything used to be cheaper, but everybody knows that. So I got the tire fixed, and so I'm happy with that. Okay, I'm parked behind a semi, and now the guy's getting out of his car. I'm going around. That's all there is to that. I don't know what he's doing, but no big deal. So got the tire fixed, brought it home, cleaned up a ton of brake fluid. Brake fluid's everywhere. And all over the inside of the wheel. I can't believe how many times I had to try to get that cleaned. So, that was Thursday morning before I went to get the proper brake line. So I went and got the proper brake line, got it installed and the whole deal. And by now it's, I don't know, roughly 2 o'clock or so, just kind of throwing out a random time. I think that's pretty close. And the dude, I was like, all right, well, I got the brake line attached. Everything looks good. Got these little clips that you got to hold the line in place, and everything's fine. And so now it's time, being that I don't have any brake fluid, and some's probably missing from the caliper, blah, 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 that I need to put some more brake fluid in. And I was like, all right, I got a jug in the garage. Well, no, I don't. My stepson used it because he did his brakes a month ago, and he changed all 4 rotors, all 4 calipers, all 4 sets of pads. Spent all day and used every drop of brake fluid that I had. All right, so here we are for the 3rd or 4th trip to the AutoZone to get some brake fluid so I could bleed the brakes, get the proper pressure, you know the deal. And so I go there, get the brake fluid. This is after, obviously we put the brake line on, everything's cool. And get home, and I was like, well, I can't bleed these by myself, so I got to wait for my son to get home. Or a stepson. I had to wait for him to get home from, I sent him a text, and he's like, oh, he was at Walmart getting some groceries, And I was like, all right, so he got home, and this was 3-4 o'clock yesterday. So we spent, I don't know, roughly a half hour or so getting that going, got up to pressure, no leaks, everything's fine. Then I was like, all right, well, I don't have any oil. I mean, there was no oil in the car. So I go, well, the only reason I haven't done that is because I haven't changed the filter. So I break out the box of the filter, and this thing's the size of a coffee can. When I had bought it, I just figured, he gave me the right filter. I don't know what size it takes because I've never personally changed the oil in this car myself. And so this coffee can size filter that you had back in the 70s, obviously still used today because it was in my bag of goods, was what I needed, or what I did not need. I needed a oil filter that was the size of a can of soda, but a little shorter. All right, another trip to AutoZone, saying, hey, here's the deal. I just got this a while back. Got the wrong filter. Need it for the Honda. He's like, okay, here you go. And so I get home, got the correct filter, and I go to take the old one off. So I got my oil filter wrench, and I weasel underneath the car because it's still up on its thing, up on the jacks. And I weasel underneath there, and I try to manipulate and wrench this, fit this metal banded oil filter remover guy in there. And it's like, well, it's just physically not going to work. It's between 2, independent, part of the transmission, and the other part was some other thing. I'm not sure, power steering or whatever. Problem is, all right, so now I need a special tool to remove the old oil filter so I can put on the correct one now. Another trip to AutoZone. So now it's really getting fun. And I mean, we're talking, this is 8 miles away each way. So we're looking at a good 30-40 minutes by the time I get my parts and stuff every time. And this is probably the 5th time that I've been back. So I had to do the rent-a-tool so I can get my oil filter off. Finally got that. No problem. So put the new one on there, gave it a little snug, and I start filling the I grabbed the gallon of oil that I had, sitting on the shelf in the garage, and I go, wow, this feels light. Okay, well, my stepson had changed his oil in his car, and he was short on oil. So he saw that oil, because it's the same oil. Our cars are the same, so he has the same oil. And so I'm a quart low, and then after that, he had checked my oil and added another quart or a half quart to my car because it was low. This was a couple weeks ago, actually. And so another trip to AutoZone. Got to get a couple quarts of oil. I'm like, oh, this is great. And while I'm here, I'm going to return that rental tool for the oil filter, and kind of go from there. So everything said and done, what would be a kind of a simple job, couple $100 later, everything said, kind of out the door type of thing. I'm glad I worked a couple days overtime because, it always seems to work out that way. Whenever you got big plans on wanting to get a lot of stuff done, sometimes it just doesn't. It's just not. It's just not in the cards. So by the time I'm actually out to do anything, it's today, and it just happens to be Friday the 13th. And I go, well, I ain't buying that because my Friday the 13th already took place, and that was a mess. So that's why there's been absolutely zero activity from me on putting up videos. I'm usually pretty good about it. I usually try to get something up for you guys to see. Just trying to find some new people, Anyway, but I also want to give a shout out because in the back and forth in the meantime, as I had this downtime, I really utilized, getting organized, and you guys will see that, like I've said probably 3 times, but it's really cool. And a friend of mine, John Kelly, Michigan, we've been talking back and forth, and he's dealing with a family loss. He lost his mother, and I think John's somewhere in my age, and I think his mother was close to 80, or if not in her 80s. I don't recall exactly, but I guess it really doesn't matter how old she was. Anyway, she passed recently, and he came across my channel, actually kind of way back when I got started, a couple months ago. And, he sends emails back and forth. He says, we love, what you're doing, And then he emailed and said, my mother does the same thing. She likes to love, she loves to help the homeless. And, she's a big supporter of people who, helping others. And, but now she's passed. And he had emailed me and said, hey, it would be my mother's, wish to, if you could try to honor her in some way for her helping the homeless. And she already said that she wanted to send you a bunch of items, some grocery items. So I was like, oh yeah, that'd be fantastic. Whatever you guys feel. So I think it was Wednesday, just 2 days ago now. Yeah, I think so. As I'm working on my car, getting organized, putting all the new boxes and stuff in place, guy pulls up with Dollar General, comes out with 10 bags of stuff. 10 bags of stuff. And I'm like, what the hell? And so I'm kind of looking through them and getting them in position and find out what needs to be refrigerated and what doesn't need to be, the drill. So I'm working on that, and then I emailed him back. He said, your order should be there. I went back to my computer real fast, and he had said, it said that your order was delivered. And I said, Dollar General? He's like, yep. I said, John, this is overkill. You guys really did the job. He's like, well, that's my mother's wishes. And her name is Rita Kelly. And he said the only thing he asked is that I give her the shout out and the credit for making this happen. And God bless you, Rita, and God bless you, John, for he in addition to the fact that he said if you could give her a shout out, which I owe so many shout outs, I'm a billion shout outs behind, and I promise I will catch up. His other concern was if I was to say that it was her wishes for this to happen, and if I could let me think about exactly how that went. So John also says in the email that he's like, Darrell, all I would like is I need you to go get some smiles, because when I watch your videos, I get a smile. My mom would get a smile, and I said, no problem, smiles it is. On Friday the 13th, it don't matter, it's gonna happen. I got to work tonight. Not cool, but anyways, that's gonna happen, John. So if anybody could keep their family maybe in their prayers, they're grieving, going through a hard time, as many of us are, and I just wanted to give credit where credit is due on that. But the next time after this, I'm going to shut down for a second. I've been on the travels here, as you can tell, for some time. I wasn't even going to say this will be 5 minutes, because we all know better. I've been keeping my eyes peeled, just miscellaneously traveling some streets, and but we're going to go find some people. Maybe somebody we saw before, maybe, I don't know, but I'm still looking for James. Dawn's got some stuff for him, but all right, I'm going to sign off right now, and then we're going to be back. So this will have to be a separate video, because otherwise it'll be, quite extensive, and nobody will hang out to finish it. But okay, guys. Hey, thanks for tuning in. I'm glad to be back. Things happen. It's just life, Anytime you think you got something planned, sometimes it can totally backfire, and that's exactly what happened. But got nothing but time. So okay, I'll be back soon, guys.